leaving Fifi looking rather frustrated. Another group's arrival is signaled by a chorus of hooting calls. Adult males dominate chimp society and are much preoccupied with their position in the hierarchy. In an effort to better his rank, the male puts on an awesome charging display. With hair bristling and vegetation flying, the male makes himself appear larger and more dangerous than he actually is. Intended to intimidate rivals, it is usually nothing more than superb bluff. One infant male already has the idea, but not yet the coordination. After displays of aggression, the dominant chimp often reassures those who have been frightened or hurt, and thus tension is diffused, harmony restored. One male rose to the top of the hierarchy by intelligence rather than strength. Mike discovered that rolling empty kerosene cans from Jane's camp made a horrifying noise. Originally one of the lowest-ranking males, Mike was now number one. Close to where they are feeding when dusk falls, the chimpanzees will build sleeping nests for the night, 30 to 40 feet up in the trees. After choosing a suitable foundation, such as a horizontal fork, the chimp takes only 3 to 5 minutes to bend down branches, then twigs, to create a comfortable padded bed. The cycle of Jane's days now blended with the rhythms of the chimps. When they nested near the peak, she often slept there to be with them at the first light of dawn.
There's a special fascination about the sudden nightfall in the forest, when the sounds of the day give place to the more mysterious sounds and rustles of the night. I always enjoyed these nights on the peak. I felt part of the mountain world around me, completely alone, completely at peace.
With creature comforts long since forsaken, Jane found increasing pleasures in her wilderness world. But, as she soon discovered, human creature comforts were not without appeal to some. A chimp had wandered into camp and found the supply tent where bananas were stored. Because he had been to camp before, when Jane was in the forest, she had a prearranged signal to call her back.
It was thrilling after all this time to find a chimp actually in my camp. It was David Greybeard, a male I had already come to know out in the forest.
David's boldness marked a turning point for Jane. After the endless months she had searched for them, the chimps, following David's lead, now came to her. Gradually, their inherent fear gave way, and an offer of friendship was accepted, with trust. If she could lure the chimps into camp regularly, Jane realized, her observations would be far more consistent than chance encounters in the forest. Bananas were the answer. The scheme was not without its flaws, as the local baboons quickly proved. David Greybeard repeatedly ran to his friend, the more powerful Goliath, for protection. Goliath came to David's defense. But the baboon knew which chimp was afraid, and it was David he went for, every time. Because of the trust established in camp, tracking the chimps in the forest was now much easier for Jane. She was able to follow and document in detail the development of Flo's infant son, Flint. At 6 months, Flint is learning to ride on his mother's back. But sometimes he doesn't get it quite right. At around the same age, he takes his first tottering steps. When he stumbles and whimpers, Flo quickly rescues him. Flo is a particularly affectionate, tolerant, and playful mother. And because much maternal behavior is learned, she is the role model for her daughter Fifi. As Flint grows older, Flo permits Fifi to take him for brief periods of time. Such experiences provide important training for the future, when young females mature and have offspring of their own. About the time Flo begins to carry Flint on her back, Fifi tries to imitate Flo. Though unsuccessful, the attempt marks an important milestone in her learning experience. Mandy is a young female who has just had her first baby. Fifi has never seen the baby before and is intrigued. For the moment, at least, this is something more interesting than Flint. As Mandy settles down, Fifi comes for a closer look at this newest member of the community. All youngsters at Gumby are interested in new babies, but Jane had never seen one who showed more fascination than Fifi. A study in concentration. Mandy is not worried by Fifi's presence, but when adolescent male Figgin approaches, she nervously moves off. Both Fifi and Figgin are fascinated by the smell of the new baby. Fifi, persistent as ever, follows Mandy. Another young female hasn't quite got the knack of how an infant should be carried. Fifi has followed Mandy up a tree and now attempts to touch the baby. Mandy gently fends her off. Meanwhile, even Flint is curious about another infant younger than he. But Flo is ready to move on in search of food, and she lets Flint know it is time to go. Fifi, still engrossed with Mandy's baby, does not notice that they leave. When she finally looks for her mother, Flo is out of sight. At 6, Fifi is still quite dependent on her mother and cries in distress. She has no idea in what direction Flo has gone. Normally, Flo would come at Fifi's cries, but apparently can't hear her above the growing storm. Although chimps seem miserable in the rain, surprisingly, they make little effort to find shelter. Even in a torrential downpour, they just sit and wait it out. Long committed to observing the chimps 7 days a week, Jane ignored the rain. Searching for the lost Fifi, she saw something remarkable instead. The male Goliath performing a spectacular display. Enthralled by the magnificent rain dance, Jane would later write, "With a display of strength and vigor such as this, primitive man himself might have challenged the elements." 20 minutes later, the rain dance was over as suddenly as it had begun. Among Goliath's audience, Jane spotted Flo and Flint. From her tall lookout, Fifi saw them too. Strong family ties, temporarily broken by the storm, were once again intact. The rainy season brings the flight of fertile winged termites as they leave their nests to establish new colonies. For chimp and baboon alike, they are a tasty delicacy. But baboons can only capture the termites outside the nest as the swarms emerge and fly. When they have gone and worker termites have resealed the nest, the baboons will move on. But the chimps not only know termites are there, hidden below the surface, they have learned how to get at them. In defense of their nest, the termites grip onto the grass, and with utmost care, the chimp gently draws them out. As a stem becomes bent, the chimp breaks off the end to make it work more efficiently. Sometimes a leafy twig is selected, but first it must be stripped of its leaves. In these actions, modifying natural objects for a specific purpose, the chimp is not only using, but actually making tools. It seems certain that this is a learned behavior, passed from generation to generation by watching and imitation. Flint does not yet know how to fish for termites, but already he imitates part of Flo's technique. Jane's proof that chimps make and use tools would rock the scientific world.
Tool using always